Hi everyone. Um, this paper was originally presented as part of the Society of Caribbean Studies' annual conference, entitled Who Cricket Only Knows: Sporting Black Communities in Rural Northants," and it's based on original PhD research I've done about Caribbean Northamptonshire during the Windrush and post-Windrush era, so between 1948 and 1985. For those of you watching this nationally or internationally who have no idea where Northampton is, it is an industrial town in the Midlands within England. So an hour from London to the south and an hour from Birmingham to the north. Further links to nearby Leicester and Bedford as well. When I was watching the documentary Fire in Babylon in 2011, it simply told me something or things I've known all my life. That cricket is spectacular. It is art. It is a game that's been in my life, that's been in me all my life, and one of the things that was in me before me. So my great grandparents met at the cricket, and my granddad Sarge played cricket in Grenada before he came to the UK in 1960. I learned to play cricket in school at the age of 5 and started playing club cricket at 8 years old. So cricket arrived in the Caribbean through colonialism, but the experiences of Caribbean people in England show how they subverted that, showing that the English, that you brought the game to us, and now we are better than you in that sense. And when England plays any team, as they are all the international teams are former colonial territories, it is steeped in that politics as well. So when I came to the game as a child, I knew this. So as C.L.R. James writes, cricket had plunged me into politics long before I was aware of it. When I did turn to politics, I did not have much to learn. Former West Indies fast bowler Andy Roberts said that England was the place West Indians struggled most, or more than anywhere else. So this paper situates cricket as a tool of community building and activism in England during the Windrush era, focusing on Northampton in the East Midlands. It is one piece I've pulled from a wider PhD findings on Caribbean Northants. That my PhD uses over 100 hours of interviews to tell stories of post-war Caribbean communities in Northamptonshire in the East Midlands. Um, Through proximity to cricket clubs, then, this is another way my grandparents' generation met other Caribbean people from the different islands in Northampton and wider afield. Ulrich Graves Andy from Guyana arriving in Northampton in 1957, and Aubrey White arriving in Northampton in 56 from Jamaica, were part of a small contingent of Caribbean people in this town in 61 when the club known as United Social was founded. Early meetings to discuss such a club were held on streets like East Park Parade, Craven Street, and Kingsley Park Terrace. From 1961, their first building on Regent Square in the town centre was given to them by Mr. Oldman, and it was one of the first independent West Indian social clubs in Britain. The cricket side of things came in 63 and was affiliated to Northampton Cricket League from 65, and they played on the racecourse. They not just local teams, but also national teams as well. They went to Sheffield, Leeds, London, Birmingham, Manchester, Nottingham, Huddersfield, and many others. At these games, there were three coach loads of people following them, one from Wellingborough and two from Northampton. There'll be huge crowds, and it was a community event. Both teams would bring crowds, and the atmosphere would be electric. And this was how Caribbean people got to know one another. The host organised post-game dances as well, drinks and food and so on. United Social was so good, even white folks came out to support them, and those days with lots of racism about, things like sports did help to break down some of the barriers. One of my participants, the late Tony Park, was part of that team from 1965 and told me that better cricket was being played on the racecourse than at the county ground. Their first league title came in 77 and repeated for 9 years. In their first 29 years as members of the league, the Caribbean United Social Club won that trophy 20 times. Throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, there were many Northampton teams, whilst there were village teams, what we have lost today is the spirit that occurred in the workplace. In Northampton, companies like British Timken, they employed many Caribbean people, had their own team, as did Express Lifts. Cricket culture helped make bonds on the field that would be carried into the workplace. Northampton Borough Police also fielded a team, as did the British Railway, which was another site that many black men found community at as well. One of my participants told me that a company called Strong and Fisher were very, very smug. When Wellingborough West Indians cricket club played them in the late 60s, they beat them by whatever means necessary. In this case, they recruited players in just in order to beat them. Ugly or nice, Strong and Fisher had to be beaten. So there was quite a lot of rivalry, and it was serious business. Cricket made bonds, it was serious. So loss or victory reflected on the company and the reputation of the company as well. St. Crispin's and St. Andrew's hospitals also fielded teams. A lot of black people worked there, but I'm not sure if any played for the team. There was also another team called Wayfarers, made up of head teachers from local Northampton schools. Monks Park Working Man's Club fielded a team as well, as did other local pubs like the Headlands, further to villages like Billing and Cooknoe. So cricket was a way of life to many people. However, much of the black community went out to support the United Social Club. So no phones, no mobile phones, no social media. People went to these events based on words of mouth, wandering in the vast expanse of Northampton. Caribbean people in the early 60s or late 50s, early 60s needed somewhere they could call their own. So the establishing of this club in 61 started local Caribbean social events as well. Curry chicken, curry goat, plantain, ackee and saltfish, patties, rice and peas, whatever could be seen beyond the boundary where families were simply having a ball. The energies of Caribbean cricket came to Northampton, where the racecourse had some of the best games of cricket ever played in the history of Northampton. Cricket, it was like a daytime party for many people, where black people could be themselves, joyous and free. Everyone's dad, their uncle, their aunties, their mums were critics. Everyone had an opinion. Core memories of families and childhood were made on the cricket field. Watching Caribbean people and natural. It brought a lot of cohesion in the community, and everything the West Indies were doing internationally was reproduced on a local level. When they beat the white teams, it was like the United Social beat England, aborting that racism on the field of play. What happened in Northampton was not happening in a bubble, where racism in cricket went to the very top of the establishment. In those days, there was a lot of racism on the field too, and United Social Club often would get cheated out a lot by umpires. It was about showing white people that you were a bit more useful than they saw you. During the 60s and early 70s, there was an idea, especially in England and Australia, that Caribbean cricketers played something called calypso cricket, incredibly patronising. It was a type of cricket that had elements of brilliance, but was of no real substance, entertaining the crowd and ultimately losing. Sides captained by Frank Worrell and Gary Sobers beat Australia, England, and India twice between 1962 and 67. So these are the characters my grandfather tells me about. Later on, Clive Lloyd, Andy Roberts, Michael Holding, Joel Garner, others during the 70s and 80s, where between February and March of 1980 and February and March of 95, the West Indies did not lose a test series. But what hasn't really been discussed, especially on film and popular TV depictions of the post-war Windrush era, is how many people were connected due to cricket and proximity to a club. Many people met others from the different islands this way, including Caribbean women meeting other women in Northampton and further afield. Caribbean stories of relocating to England or Britain, settling in towns or cities, finding jobs and travelling often can involve a club, a cricket club, or a social club. Cricket is one of the many things that Paul Gilroy called raw materials and Jacqueline Massey Brown called diaspora resources that allowed Caribbean people to enter diaspora communities. As Massey Brown writes, diaspora resources include not just cultural productions like music, but also people and places, as well as iconography, ideas, ideologies um, associated with them. Place is an especially important resource for the practices and politics of travel, serve to map diasporic space, helping to define its margins and centres, while also crucially determining who is empowered to go where, when, under what conditions, and for what purpose. Resources are appropriated to meet particular needs, but do so within limits, within and against power asymmetries and with political consequences. Cricket for Black people in this country during the early days was a way of life. If the West Indies lost, some were even afraid to go to work because they knew their white co-workers would throw abuse at them. So proximity to cricket united Black people. I grew up hearing from Black friends white folks, and I still hear it to a lot now, that our national team is white and there is a lot of British kids going into the game. It's expensive and there's more money in football. Once upon a time, you couldn't move without seeing cricket and the Caribbean being talked about together. This is one way our communities were built in conjunction with the social clubs, the blues parties, partner, and a good deal else. The stories we've been told about these post-war arrivals has been one of blues parties, Black First, and many more. Cricket is not one I've seen done to popularity of music, employment, and housing. Gordon Greenidge came to live here from Barbados at 14 and played for the West Indies. He scored an iconic 214 runs not out in 1981 against England. I was told the West Indies team also visited Northampton and Edinburgh in the early 80s when they toured as well. In the same era that gave us the outstanding Caribbean team who barely lost, Northampton was doing similar. Caribbean Northamptonians took on the whiteness of the sport and sent a message that you brought the game to us and we are better than you. Some did not like that confrontational approach to the game. And in closing, my great-grandparents, Toyley and Edson Noel, loved cricket, and they met at a cricket match in Grenada before they came to England. Cricket is a Caribbean love story, moulded by colonialism, that I've grown to love as well. Playing it in school and local clubs for years taught me a lot about life and people, and it taught me a lot about whiteness and how to navigate white institutions as well. And the politics of the cricket field is something I have transferred into day-to-day life as well, and my work and all that stuff as well. So thanks very much for listening. And if you liked this presentation, leave a comment. If you've got questions, also comment and share. Thanks very much.